Hey everyone, this is Jasmine. Her workshop that we're doing today is Black Girl Embrace Your Healing, Comprehensive Introduction to Personal Growth and Healing. Thank you for being here. It's exciting. Also, Jasmine had a show here, so if you were here, what was it, July and June, she had her artwork on display.
So this is kind of comprehensive of the artwork. Can't even remember the name of it. It was just for all women, but it was a longer title. So it kind of inspired this workshop. The basis of the show was basically my introduction to my healing journey. And it was kind of, I guess, going off of just women kind of taking back their power, taking back their voice, and feeling safe enough to tell our story. I feel like a lot of times we don't have spaces where we can communicate effectively, or even just talk about the things that are taboo. And trauma is one of the things that are taboo for everybody. I feel like the society that we live in is just one of those things where we don't talk about the things that we go through, right? We just go through them. And I kind of got tired of keeping everything in and not having the opportunity to discuss and communicate and talk about how I was feeling. And because I think that that's very important for growth, to be able to move past it. So that's kind of where that came from. And then it actually inspired, so Heal Black Girl is a community that I created based off of that. It started off as never just healing, but then I felt like it was my duty to, again, trauma affects us all. But I felt like being a Black woman, sometimes women of color in general don't usually have the ability to say that we are dealing with something. We just have to deal. And so me going through my transformation and my transition, I felt like it was my duty to create a safe space for Black women to have community and just to be able to talk about the things that we're not always, I don't want to use the word allowed, but allowed to talk about. But it is a space for pretty much anybody. When I started this community, it was specifically for Black women, but I do a lot of like workshops online, on TikTok, and women of all races, everybody seems to resonate with the things that I talk about. So it is for everybody. It's just that my main priority is Black women, but this is for everybody. We all have trauma, and we all need to be able to learn how to heal past it. And so that's what we're gonna talk about today, is just embracing your healing, and then we're gonna just kind of understand what that means. So some of the things that we're gonna talk about is understanding healing and your personal growth, actually how to start your healing journey. A lot of people have come to me with like, where do I even start? I don't know where to start. So we're gonna talk about what that looks like. I'm gonna give you guys some tools for healing and personal growth. We're gonna talk about the power of community in healing. Again, we do a lot of things individually on our own, but there's power in community and communion. And so we're going to talk about that, and we're also going to create our own personal growth and healing plan at the end of it. So you guys, if you want, you'll have something tangible that you can take away. If you're able to take notes, if we have paper down to give to them, we'll just write some things down, and you guys will be able to take away a personal plan that you can use if you're wanting to start your healing journey. That will help you out, give you also some resources, next steps, how you can find me, where our community will be, and then we'll just answer questions and do a little bit of sharing if you guys like. So that's just going over the story that I kind of talked about just now. This is my own healing journey began during the time of deep personal pain. I was going through a divorce. And then, I was going through a separation, and in the midst of the separation, I actually got into another relationship. And so, getting into that relationship only lasted for like about 9 months. And the same exact thing that happened in my divorce happened in that relationship. And that was kind of a light bulb for me. I'm very big on taking accountability and responsibility for the situations that I'm in. I never like to blame anybody else. And so, dealing with those two relationships back to back, I had to take a step back and say, okay, what is it that I'm doing that I'm attracting these situations to myself. And so instead of saying, you know, you did this or you did that, like, I don't believe in blaming other people, because it was a cycle and the common denominator was me. So I had to take some time apart. Like, I separated myself from the situation just to kind of get a better understanding of what was I doing to attract these type of relationships. And so in doing that, that's kind of where I decided there's some things going on. I have certain triggers that I didn't even know were triggers, and I need to reevaluate, you know, who I am. And that's kind of where this journey began for me. And that's where Heal Black Girl came from. So we'll jump into it. I know that I said I'll do Q&A at the end, but at any time, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, or whatever, I do like open discussion. So if you want to just throw some information out there, ask some questions as we go, that's perfectly fine as well. So healing, it's the process of acknowledging your personal and systematic trauma, right? Healing is not fixing something. I want to make that very clear, because a lot of people think that you go through a situation, you heal from it, it'll never happen again. And that is not true, right? That's kind of impossible, because we deal with life every single day, right? And so what it is just acknowledging that you are actually on a journey, and acknowledging what traumas you've encountered that made this journey possible. It's embracing your unique narrative. We all have our own personal story. Again, just because the community that I created is Heal Black Girl, it doesn't mean that the things that we talk about will not resonate with anybody else, because it absolutely will. And then it's cultivating strength and resilience. Understanding that no matter what you went through, you're still strong, you're still resilient. I do not like to use, I may use the word later on, but I do not like to use the word victim, because I feel like it holds a negative connotation, and it makes people feel weak, right? And that's not what we are. Personal growth is allowing yourself to develop skills, behaviors, attitudes, and values that contribute to a more fulfilled life. My ultimate goal for this community is to help women actually enjoy a more fulfilled life, instead of just living life as it comes, right? We all have desires, we all have dreams, we all have things that we want to do. And so the goal is to heal past the trauma that's keeping us from those things, so that we can live a more fulfilled life. We want to break generational patterns, redefine personal boundaries. Personal boundaries are very important. It's one thing that I teach my children. You have to, even like my daughter she's 4, she just started school, and she was telling me that today a little girl was touching her hair. We just locked her hair up, and that's something that Black women deal with a lot. Our hair, for whatever reason, is like this mystical thing, and the little girl was touching her hair, and she said that she didn't like it. And so I told her, you can say, I don't want you to touch my hair. That's creating boundaries. If it doesn't make you feel safe, if it doesn't make you feel comfortable, even at 4, we have to teach them early. They have to understand you have to create personal boundaries, because my mom used to tell me all the time, you teach people how to treat you. Once you set that boundary, then people know what your levels are. They know what lines they can and can't cross, and then they'll go about things differently. Enhancing emotional intelligence. That is something that not everybody has. Emotional intelligence is very scarce. And the reason being is because it's something that we probably weren't taught, right? I come from a household where my mother would tell us when we would have a situation when things were difficult, we would have a bad day, or even if I fell down and got hurt, I was told not to cry, that you shake it off, you'll be okay, right? That was hindering my emotional intelligence, because what that was telling me was that I could not react naturally to what I was feeling, that I had to hold it in. And I grew up feeling that exact same way. So now at 40 years old, I have a hard time expressing when I'm sad, because I see that as a weakness. That is a lack of emotional intelligence. We also want to foster a strong sense of self and community. It is very important. Before you can foster a sense of community, you have to foster a sense of self. You cannot pour into anybody else if you're not able to pour into yourself. Any questions so far?
Can we get the slideshow after? If not, it's fine.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to talk about some myths and misconceptions really quickly surrounding the healing journey. You guys have probably heard this. For whatever reason, this is trending. Healing is not linear, right? I don't know if you guys have heard it, even know what it means. Healing is linear is a myth. People, like I said before, people think that when you heal, when we think of terms of like broken bones or bruises or scrapes or whatever, right? You put a Band-Aid on it, give it time to heal, everything is fine. But I don't know if you've heard before that once you break a bone, it never heals the exact way that it was prior to being broken, right? That's the same thing with us. We're people, we're human, we're flesh and blood. The healing process is not a one and done situation. If you've had any type of trauma, any level of trauma, you will be healing from that for the rest of your lives. That's just, it sounds horrible, but once you understand your triggers and understand your trauma, then it's actually a really beautiful journey, because then you get to know yourself a little bit more. But don't ever let anybody tell you that happened 7 years ago. Why are you still upset about it? It made an impact, right? And that's what triggers are. Certain things can happen.
How do you understand your triggers? How do you understand that? How do you understand your triggers to get to that point?
I'm glad you asked that question. I'm not sure if we'll get to it in the slide, but I'll answer. No, I'm glad you asked, because a lot of people ask that. So in order to understand your triggers, the first thing that you have to do is acknowledge that you have trauma. A lot of times people won't even acknowledge it. We feel like, no, I'm good, I'm okay, right? So the first thing that you have to do is acknowledge that you have trauma. Once you acknowledge that you have trauma, you have to kind of sit with it and say, well, what's the trauma? Like, what's bothering me? So if you are in the middle of an argument with somebody, and it can be something as simple as where to go eat food, right? And then they may say that they don't want chicken. And then for whatever reason, you start to get like this, your body starts to tense up, your palms start to sweat. You don't even know why you're so upset, but the word chicken just kind of threw you off. And it could be that maybe when you were younger, your father went to go buy chicken and never came back, right? And so that is something that you have an attachment to. And the way that you understand your triggers is that you pay attention to your body. When someone says something or does something that makes you feel uncomfortable, uneasy, just not in your natural state, you're being triggered. And there's a lot of things, we all react to triggers differently. Like I said, your hands can start to sweat. I personally have panic attacks. I did not know this until like a couple of weeks ago. That my panic attacks, I just thought that I was an anxious person. But going through this process myself, I realized that my panic attacks comes from triggers. So I have panic attacks. Some people get physically sick. It just really depends, but you have to pay attention to your body. And some of the techniques that I give is whenever you notice that you are having just uncommon reactions, write them down. Write down what reactions you're having. Write down what was happening before and after you had the reactions. And then also write down what your reaction was to it. Because that's going to help you. If you got upset, you got angry, you started yelling, right? You write it down, then you can say to yourself, okay, this is what I did in this moment. What can I do that's going to offset that? Instead of getting angry immediately, maybe I need to take a walk. Maybe I need to meditate. Maybe I need to deep breathe for a couple of minutes. Because then that's going to allow you to regulate your body and regulate how you're feeling, and then you won't react the same way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So healing is not linear. It doesn't have a beginning and an end. It's a journey that's up and downs. There's going to be a progress. There's also going to be setbacks. One thing that's really important is that when you are on your healing journey and you have a setback, that's okay. It's normal. It's fine. It doesn't mean you're failing. It doesn't mean that you broke it. It just means that this is part of the process. It's actually a good thing, because for one, you're acknowledging that you are feeling something about what you're going through. So if you have a setback and you revert, like what we just talked about, if you find yourself in that similar situation and you start to yell again, that's okay. All you have to do is just apply the techniques that you've learned, and when you're presented with it again, just try and do better. You have to give yourself grace. Another myth is that healing is only for those with severe trauma. We cannot label trauma, because what's traumatic to me may be a walk in the park for somebody else, right? I've never been in the military, so I can't say that something that somebody has been in the military has gone through is going to affect me the same way, right? So it's not exclusive to any group. Anybody can benefit from the healing process, whether they're experiencing severe trauma or just they want to improve their well-being and personal growth. Trauma is one of those words that we can't really put in a box. If you feel like it was a traumatic, I'm a very emotional person, and I hate for people to tell me how to regulate my emotions. I hate for people to say to me, it's not that serious. Why are you crying? It's not that big of a deal. If I had an emotional reaction to it, clearly it was a big deal to me, right? So my trauma and your trauma is never going to be the same. Another myth, Black women are always strong and don't need healing. We hear this all the time. I'm at the point in my life where I no longer want to be a superhero. I'm giving it up. I've turned in my cape. I quit. I actually told my kids the other day, I am not the superhero anymore. It's a standard that I think that we are kind of born into because of everything that, you know, our parents, their parents, our ancestors have gone through. It's like you have to be strong at all times. And if you're not, then you're weak. And that's not true. That's not true. We're women. We deserve to be feminine. We deserve to be emotional. That is our birthright, right? And it's the same thing for men. I also, on the flip side of it, I do work with Black men. I'm working on a documentary called To Love a Black Man. And I feel like it's the same thing with them. They feel like society has put them in this box where they're not allowed to cry. They're not allowed to be emotional. They're not allowed to feel anything. They have to be the protector always. So they don't have a place either where they can just go and let their emotions out because it's taboo. Well, that's not true. That's not true. And so another myth that we want to work on, a part of the healing journey is being able to embrace that softness, being able to embrace it without feeling like it's a weakness. The last myth is that healing can only be achieved with professional help. This is one of the things that I struggled with getting into this because I felt like I am not a licensed practitioner. I'm not a licensed therapist. You know, people are not going to listen to me. They're not going to take in the things that I have to say, but I had to sit with it for a while. And what allows me to be able to do this work, because I'm a trauma-informed coach. What allows me to be able to do this work is because I've gone through it. I've experienced. And so you don't always have to seek professional help, because sometimes, again, in our community, it's taboo to go and see a therapist, right? And so some people may feel a little iffy about that. And so I wanted to create an environment where you don't have to go and see a therapist. You can just go talk to your best friend, or you can, you know, call me, talk to me. We can deal with it together. It doesn't have to be in a room where, you know, all these lights and I'm taking notes, and we can just have a regular conversation. Healing is about community. So when you're starting your healing journey, you're going to recognize the need for healing. We talked about before you can start the journey, you have to be honest with yourself. One of the things that I had the most difficult time with was being honest with myself about the things that I needed to heal from. It's hard because the truth is not easy to confront. So you have to acknowledge that you actually have things that you need to heal from. And then once you acknowledge it, accept it. It's okay. It doesn't mean that you're broken. It doesn't mean that you're a bad apple, right? It just means that you've experienced life. And then we learn how to overcome our fears, because this is I'm telling you, this is probably the scariest thing that I have ever done. It has been the most gut-wrenching. I've probably cried more like in the last 2 months than I have in my whole entire life. And at things that don't even, I can be watching cartoons with my baby. Bluey. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Bluey is the most relatable cartoon. There was an episode where the mom was telling the kids, I just need 5 minutes. I was like, oh my God, I get it. Like, and I cried. And my daughter was looking at me like, what is wrong with you? But it's like, I've just completely broken open. I'm learning how to overcome the fears that I've had with just knowing myself and attaching to the things that I've dealt with. And so some of the signs and the symptoms that we talked about before. Prolonged sadness. It's not always depression. We don't have to label everything. I think that it makes it easier sometimes for people to label you, because then they can put you in a box and they can say, okay, you're depressed. We know what to do with that. Let me give you some medicine. Go about your day, right? It's prolonged sadness is not always depression. If it is depression, though, that's okay. Life is hard. We get depressed. But those are one of the things. If you feel like you've been sad for too long, it probably isn't what you think you're sad about. What you're dealing with may actually be a trigger to something that happened to you in your past. And so, and this is another thing that I've come across. It's like, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm upset, but I've been that way for 3 days, and that situation is not happening anymore. And so it's like, you know what? I probably wasn't sad, angry, upset about that situation. That situation triggered something else. So that's something that you may want to take into account. If you feel like you're anxious all the time, if you're getting angry for no reason, or if you have numbness, if you're at the point in your life where you feel like, I don't have any feelings anymore. I've been there, where things are just too heavy and you cut yourself off to feeling. You get numb, right? That may be a sign that you might need to start healing. Recurring nightmares, intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts for me are recurring daymares. I don't know if that's a word. Anybody's ever had that happen where you can just in the middle of the day think about something and it's like you're just kind of stuck? Me and my daughter, we notice it all the time. Like we'll be talking to each other and like I can see like she's looking at me, but I know that she's not there, and I'm just like snap out of it. But it takes her a minute. I feel like that's an intrusive thought. Something has just kind of taken over, her mind, and she's thinking too much about the situation. Those are all signs and symptoms. If you have difficulty with forming and maintaining healthy relationships, that can be any type of relationship. Friendship, a romantic relationship, mother-daughter relationship, father-daughter relationship, mother-son, any type of relationship. If you realize that you have a hard time forming and maintaining it, then you may have something that you need to heal from. What I like to tell people all the time, what I spoke about earlier, is that when you are taking note of the relationships that you have or that you are having a hard time with, try not to blame the other person. We are only responsible for ourselves. We can only deal with what we're dealing with, right? And I believe very heavily in alignment and attraction. And the people in your life are there for a reason. Whatever energy you're putting out, you are attracting those people to you. So if you are in an unhealthy relationship, 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, it's because of you. And so instead of saying, well, this person doesn't listen to me, or they don't communicate well, or they're mean, or start to say, what am I doing? How do I communicate? How do I act when I'm upset? Do I shut down? Am I nice on, days when I don't want to be? So start to do a little bit of inner reflection instead of pointing the finger. And once you start to do the work on yourself, and I noticed when I started doing the work on myself, the people that I was having difficulty with, I just didn't hear from them anymore. And I believe that was alignment. We just weren't in the same space anymore. I didn't want to have conversations about how horrible your week was, because I'm in a space where I'm trying to figure me out. And so I just would stop answering the phone, right? And it's okay. Again, boundaries. It doesn't mean that you're being a bad friend. It means that you're recognizing that you need space to deal with you, right? So once you start to do the work for yourself, then you'll notice that the people who are not in alignment with your path, they'll fall off. You won't even have to tell them to go away. They'll go away on their own. Acceptance is the first step of healing. So you have to accept that the reality of your experiences, your emotions, they all impact your life, right? So how you feel, I am a person who feels very deeply. I feel every single thing all the time. And I've had a hard time in a lot of my relationships, romantic relationships, relationships with my siblings, my mother, even with my children, because I'm just hypersensitive. And a lot of times people don't like to deal with people who are hypersensitive because they don't know how to handle it, right? They don't want to cry all the time. They don't want to talk about feelings all the time. And so I had to accept, you know what, this is who I am, but I need to kind of learn how to navigate it in order to make them not feel like they owe me anything, right? Because when you're a very sensitive person, people feel the need to want to protect you all the time, and that can be overwhelming for them. And so that was one of the things that I had to accept. It's not about approving or condoning negative experiences or behaviors. That's another thing that you tend to do when you're dealing with trauma, is that sometimes you get to a space where you just want people to love you, so you just accept whatever. And just because you realize that you have trauma that you're dealing with, it doesn't mean that you deserve less, right? So it doesn't mean that you condone just anything because you want somebody to love you. Instead, you have to kind of face the truth of your experiences. Again, not always having to show up for people when you don't feel like it is perfectly fine. You don't have to. If you're not in that space, then don't be in that space. That's all about acceptance. It's just giving yourself grace, giving yourself permission to be okay with the decisions that you make. Any questions so far? Overcoming fears and hurdles. So, like I said, this journey is once you, and this is how I knew I was in it. Because I thought at one point, this was maybe 2 years ago when I initially decided to start my healing journey. But it was too easy for me. It was just like, I was in this moment where I decided I wanted to have a better life. So I went and I looked for a better life and everything was fine. And I thought that was it. And I'm like, okay, cool, this is great. All you have to do is make a decision and then you live towards that decision. And I don't really remember when everything just came crashing down, but my life did a complete 180. And I started, all of the things that I was afraid of started coming to fruition. And in that moment was when I realized, now I'm on my healing journey. Prior to, all I did was make a decision. I hadn't really done the work. When you start to do the work is when everything kind of comes to the surface. Are you guys familiar with shadow work? Has anybody ever done it? Whew. Listen. Whenever you decide to, I suggest everybody does it. I feel like you can't really be on your healing journey until you, shadow work is like the first step, honestly. What it is it uncovers all of the trauma that you're needing to heal from. So just saying that, you know how difficult it's going to be. It is difficult. I would suggest when you decide to go through that part of your healing journey, don't do it alone. Don't do it alone. You don't necessarily have to seek out a professional therapist, but seek out somebody that's been through it before, because it's not easy and you will want to quit. Because when you start to uncover everything that you feel like can break you, you break. You just do. There's no way around it. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you like, oh, you can't be broken. Yes, you can, and you will. You will break open and into pieces multiple times. But it is absolutely necessary, because I personally feel like you can't move past that. You can't get into that next stage until you've allowed yourself to be broken. The thing with the beauty in brokenness to me is that you get to become who you want to be instead of being who the world has created you to be. I see it as breaking what they've created and becoming who I actually am. And it's difficult, but it has been the best thing that I've ever decided to do. So shadow work is the first step. Do shadow work. It's gonna be scary, and again, it's not something that I suggest that you do alone. Some strategies to navigate these hurdles, especially when you're going through shadow work: self-compassion. Treat yourself with kindness and understanding. Throughout this process, the biggest thing for me has been learning how to fall in love with myself. I didn't even know. I'm a very confident person. I never had an issue with like insecurities or just not feeling like I was good enough until I started this process. When I started this process, I was just like, I'm not good enough for anybody. I'm not good enough for anything. I became the most insecure person I'd ever met. Again, because of the shadow work. I was uncovering a lot of things that I repressed. And it made me feel like I just was not, I wasn't worthy. So I had to take the time out to give myself grace. Be nice to myself. I do affirmations. Sometimes, like, I talk to myself a lot. At this point, people probably think that I'm crazy because I do it in public.
I do that too.
I am my favorite person now. I talk to myself a lot. But that's part of my, and this is another thing that I did not notice, didn't know about myself. I'm an auditory learner. I didn't know that. I thought that I was a person who learned from like seeing things, like, cause I'm a visual person. Like if I see it, I can replicate it very easily. But this is not about replication, right? This is about taking things in. And so on this journey, I learned that I actually take things in better in an auditory fashion. And so sometimes when I'm having a moment, I'll take my phone out and I'll record however I'm feeling in that moment. If I'm angry, if I'm sad, whatever, I'll record it. And then when I'm in a better space, I'll go back and I'll listen to it. Other times when I'm in the store, I put my AirPods in because I don't want anybody to think I'm crazy. But I will walk around Walmart and I will talk to myself because I've learned that I have to talk things out. I have to. In order for me to process something, I have to talk it out. In relationships, what I've learned is that a lot of people don't communicate that way, but I have to. And so that was something that I took on in order for me to be able to process things the way that I needed to process them. So if you can't communicate with me the way that I want to communicate, again, it's taking responsibility, not putting it on the other person, right? Not saying, well, you know what? You're not there for me. You're not helping me. You're not doing what I need you to do. I said, okay, well, I understand this is not how you communicate, but it's how I communicate. So I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to go in the bathroom and I'm going to talk to myself on the phone. And then when I need to process it, I can listen again. And it helps me. But these are ways that I'm allowing myself to be compassionate with myself. And this also helps with self-validation. Another thing that I learned about myself, that I need validation. I did not know that. Being a secure person, you feel like you don't need validation from anybody. But again, this process broke me. So I'm not a secure person anymore. So I need validation from everybody, right? So and people are not going to give you validation the way you want them to. And again, it's not their fault. So this has allowed me to learn how to validate myself, right? Being compassionate with myself, treating myself with kindness, understanding that just because I walk around Walmart with my AirPods in talking to myself that I'm not crazy. That's just something that I need to do. Reach out for support. You want to connect with supportive friends. Supportive friends does not mean, just because you've known somebody for 13 years, that does not mean that they're going to understand your journey, right? And in order to not isolate yourself from people that you love and people that you've known, then you need to recognize that not everybody's going to understand your journey and you can't blame them for that. But you do need to find a community of people who have either gone through what you've gone through or in the space that you're in, because they're going to be able to give you what you need. You cannot expect one or two people in your life to be everything for you. That's too much. That's too much for them. It's very important to have a set of friends for all of your personalities, because everybody's not going to be able to fill you up the way that you need to individually, right? So make sure that you have supportive friends, supportive family members. If you are comfortable with going to a mental health professional, I do recommend it. Therapy is amazing if you're ready. Everybody's not ready. The first time I went to therapy, I ended up being my therapist. That did not work out for me, and it made me mad. So I had to give myself a break and find somebody else. But it's not for everybody. Join a community like Heal Black Girl. We do things that I call like share circles, where we just kind of get together and talk. Talking, for a lot of people, sometimes when you have something on your chest, like a lot of people think that when you call up your friend and you talk about a problem that you're having, they immediately want to give you a solution. And that's not what you're reaching out for. You already know what the solution is. You already know what you want to do. You just want to talk it out, right? And then what happens when they give us a solution that doesn't match up with our solution? Then we get mad, right? So join a community. that understands that. So that way you can just get it off your chest, you can talk about it, you can vent, and nobody's gonna judge you for it. Education, learn about the healing process. I have a lot of resources that I offer that just as I go through the process, I post resources like the shadow work. I'm learning a lot about it. And me going through, I am getting my certification for being a trauma-informed coach. So I have a lot of resources that I'm utilizing. I share those. So learn as much as you can. Understand that what you're going through is going to actually demystify your experience. And when you put yourself in a position to learn more and know more, it reduces fear. It's also challenging. The saying that, what is the saying about knowing too much? That ignorance is bliss. I believe that wholeheartedly. Sometimes I wish I did not know everything that I know, because it confuses the journey. Sometimes you just want to feel, right? So be careful when you're doing research. Don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. Because when you know too much, especially when you start talking to people, like have you ever had a friend that went to therapy, and then you're talking to them about your problems, and then they want to become your therapist just because they went to therapy? I have a friend like that. I don't talk to her no more. Like, don't do that. It's like, but it's not her fault. It's just like she feels like she knows this, so she wants to put that information out there. So do the research, but do it sparingly. You don't want to just, overwhelm yourself. And then self-care. Self-care is very important. You want to prioritize activities that's going to nourish your mind, body, and soul. Whatever that looks like for you. Self-care is different for everybody. But self-care, what I say about self-care is whatever makes you feel good in the moment. Anything. That can be taking a walk. It can be painting. It can be listening to music. It can be taking a bubble bath. Cooking and cleaning is self-care for me. People think that I'm crazy because they're like, that's work, but that's self-care for me. I am a nurturer by heart, and so when I clean my house and I cook for my kids, that fills me up. Last weekend, I went to go cook for my mom, just because she didn't ask for it, she wasn't hungry. I called her and I said, I want to cook for you, because that fills me up. It didn't have nothing to do with her. Like, it wasn't, I'm not trying to make you feel away. If that was a selfish thing, I wanted to feel, because I cooked and I left. Like, that was for me. That was my self-care moment. So whatever feels good to you, whatever fills you up, that's self-care. Make sure that you do more self-care than everything else on this list. Okay, so we're going to talk about some tools for healing and personal growth. My favorite is the mindfulness practices. And then, of course, shadow work. We talked about that. Reflective prompts. That's if you like to journal. Some people like to journal. I never used to be a journaler because, again, I'm an auditory learner. I'm a visual learner. So, like, to write things, I'm a writer. So this does not make sense to anybody when I tell them this. But I didn't really like to journal because I didn't feel like it did anything for me until I started this process. And so when I was able to actually write down how I was feeling and write down like how my day went, and it wasn't for me, because some people in the moment, they like to be able to just write it out, and in the moment it makes them feel good. For me, it was being able to go back and read what I wrote. It wasn't in the moment for me. It was the reflective part. It was like, oh my God, yesterday was crazy. I am so grateful that today was better. That's what I get from journaling. So we'll discuss reflective prompts and also some practical steps. So mindfulness is being fully present. I'm gonna take a minute and talk about this because this is very important to me. I've learned the power of being present. Yesterday is over and tomorrow does not exist. All we have is right now. And this helped me with my anxiety. When we're dealing with something, right? It can be something right before you came here. Maybe you've gotten into an argument with somebody and it's sitting on you. It's heavy. It's weighing on you. You're feeling it. You're going through it. But is that person here right now? Is that moment happening right now? Right now, you are perfectly fine. And this is for every instance. You get into a car accident, right? And you're on the way to the hospital. and all you can think about is, oh my God, am I gonna be okay? Is my car gonna be okay? Are the kids, whatever the situation is. But the thing is, even if you may have broken bones, you might be bleeding, but you're alive, right? In this moment, you're okay. And so I use that method to remind myself I'm okay. Being present is very important. And so when I'm talking to people about mindfulness, I stress that you have to allow yourself to be present and be in the moment, this exact moment that's happening right now, because this is a moment where you're okay. It makes you aware of your surroundings, your actions, and your emotions without being overly reactive or overwhelmed. Being present kind of regulates all of that, because fear, anxiety, stress, all of that comes from something that has already happened or something that we think is going to happen. And how crazy is that we're stressed and worried about something that hasn't even happened yet, right? Like, that's crazy, because it's a huge possibility it's not going to happen at all. And the thing that's already happened, we can't change it. So what are we stressed and worried about it for? What's going on right now, right? That's the only thing that we need to commit our emotions to, and that is the only thing that we need to react to. When you're thinking about reactions, I am an overly reactive person. I am a very reactive person. I don't tend to think before I react. I react off of my emotions, and it's not good for anybody. What I've learned to do, and it's so crazy to me, because again, me being emotional, my reactions can be either I'm gonna cry, I'm gonna probably run you over with my car. It's that dramatic, right? What I've learned to do is feel the moment, take a couple of deep breaths, and say, you're okay right now. Once I do that, I no longer feel what I was feeling 2 seconds ago. And I'm telling myself, you tripping, you could have went to jail because you were about to go, run this person over with your car. And it's like, you're not even mad no more. So it's like being overwhelmed is because of either something that has already happened that's triggering you, or something that you think is going to happen because you were triggered. But again, you put yourself in a state of being in the moment. It helps you manage your emotions. It does reduce stress, and it allows you to create a stronger connection with yourself. As I've been talking, a lot of the things that I've been learning so much about who I am going through this process. And again, being in the moment gives me the time to do that. Tools to practice mindfulness can include, but are not limited to, meditation, yoga, deep breathing, exercise, and journaling. Meditation is my absolute favorite. I think I'm addicted to it now. Does anybody meditate? That was me. So what I did, because I can't stop the voices in my head. I'm gonna be crazy at the end of this. I had to do guided meditation first. Guided, because it's something I can hear, something I can listen to. That's what I'm focusing on. Like, if it's completely quiet, there's no way. Guided meditation helps. Moving meditation, I don't know if there's another name for it, but I love doing that. I go for walks, and those are the times when I'm talking to myself. But that's also a form of meditation. Meditation is not always just sitting on the floor with your legs crossed. That's not the only way to meditate. Meditation is basically where you're allowing your mind to be completely still. And the reason that you want to do that, again, for an overactive mind, right? Because we create the chaos. We create the stress. We create, the insecurity. We create the fear. We create the worry. When you are meditating, you put your mind at ease, and everything that's peaceful, joyful, fulfilling, you allow that to come to you when you're meditating. I say I'm addicted to meditation because every time I find myself in a place where I'm just getting to that level, I'll go meditate. I don't care what, I can have a house full of people. I need to take a minute. I'm gonna go meditate. It's gotten to the point where my 4-year-old meditates now, because I do it all the time. Bless you. And she's also hyperactive, and so we've learned that it regulates her emotions. It regulates, her activity. And so I will go and don't know where she is for like 10 minutes and she's in my room meditating. And so it's my favorite thing to do now. I do it. I even do sleep meditation. And what I'll do is like I'll find something to listen to while I'm sleeping. Some people will tell you that it's not good to fall asleep when you're meditating, but for me, it's when you understand what meditation is and you know how to actually regulate what you're looking for from meditation, you can do it in whatever way you want. For me, the sleep meditation helps because it helps me to wake up in a better mood. Because if I've had a very stressful day, I don't want to wake up with that on me. And 9 times out of 10, you will, right? We always think about what we were dealing with the next morning. Meditating while I'm sleeping, which is again just listening to something. It can be like I love listening to vibrations. I have a playlist now where instead of listening to music, I'll put vibrations on in the car, and I'll listen to vibrations. I'll listen to that at night, but it just puts me in a better mood when I wake up in the morning.
Have you ever done the sound bowls?
I haven't, but I want to. Yes, I have a friend that actually does that, and the Reiki, and yeah, she's gonna teach me.
There's a few podcasts I'll listen to going to sleep at night. But there's one that does like bedtime story type thing, but before it he does like a sleep meditation that's just like lay down, feel your bed beneath you, just to get you calm. Like even those ones I feel like are great.
Yeah. Can you give me the name of them?
It's called oh my god, I don't know why I forgot. It's called Get Sleepy.
Okay, it is a podcast?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
free.
Deep breathing. Has anybody ever practiced deep breathing?
That's actually how I got through labor.
I didn't do natural labor.
It was just the Lamar's class. They taught me well, but yeah.
For me, when I was introduced to it, I did not expect the outcome that happened when I first did it. Again, I don't know if it's because I'm overly emotional, but like I cried for a very long time and I could not stop crying. And it's just like you think, well, you're just breathing. But what happens is that when you actually, deep breathing is intentional. It's not just, it's intentional. You breathe in, you hold, you release. The release part is what puts you into like this emotional place because you are actually releasing trauma. You're releasing tension. And if you have not addressed it before, then you get emotional. But that's another thing that I recommend for people to do is to incorporate that into your daily routine, just to take time to actually deep breathe. Of course, exercise, and that can be anything. Like I said, I go for walks. My walks were not initially for exercise. They were just for meditation purposes. But they, of course, you're walking and you're intentionally walking at a certain pace. You're going to regulate, your heart rate and those type of things. When your body and your mind get into alignment, magic happens. And when you exercise, a lot of times people talk about exercise for just to be healthy and get your blood pressure down and losing weight and things of that nature. But what I've learned is that it actually helps to get your body and your mind in alignment. And when I say magic happens, I absolutely believe that because I've experienced it. A lot of things in our life that's not in sync is because our body and our mind is not in sync. I'm in a place right now, going through this journey has changed my appetite. That was not something that I was expecting. I don't like sugar anymore. I don't really want to eat meat anymore. Everything is just like, I don't want it. And that was crazy to me because I'm like, I don't understand. What does that have to do with me being on a healing journey, me learning my triggers, me, facing my trauma? That's that, your body and your mind being in alignment. And so when you go through this there's a lot of things that are going to kind of come out that you're just like, I didn't know that had anything to do with the other, but it does. In journaling, we talked about that. Again, if you've never done it, try it. Just because you may get something out of it that you did not expect. Like I said, I don't journal for the in the moment process. I journal for the reflective process, just to go back and read what I was dealing with prior to. Let's talk about shadow work. So we talked a little bit about it before. It's a term that was coined by Carl Jung. It describes the parts of ourselves that we choose to repress or hide our fears, shame, guilt, and perceived flaws, right? So I'm gonna share something with you guys. When I did this presentation, I was going through it. I realized when I got to the part of shadow work, like I said before, is that you guys came in a little bit later. Have you ever done shadow work?
Yes.
Have you done shadow work? When I got to the part of shadow work, I wanted to quit healing. I didn't want to do it no more. I was like, you know what? I'm good. The way I was is perfectly fine. I don't want to do it no more.
I don't even that bad.
Because it opens up things. Like literally, I did not even think that I repressed things. I didn't until I got to this point. And there are some things that when I was doing this, I said, okay, part of this is me being completely transparent. We deal with things internally and we feel like, for whatever reason, we're the only one who's dealing with that thing. What I have learned on this journey and me actually creating Heal Black Girl is that it is absolutely important. Some of us are meant to have I don't really know how to say, like, I don't want it to sound like I was being a martyr, but some of us go through things for the sake of other people. I believe that. Simply because we can deal with it a lot better. What I didn't realize was that that's what was going on with me and that I had to share my story. And I sat down with myself, and before I actually committed to doing this, I asked myself, are you ready? Because I feel like the perception of my personality or my character or who I am, nobody really knows me. And I'm okay with that. It's not a problem for me. But in order for me to do this and to do it right and to do it the way God called me to do it, I had to let people in to the side that nobody knew. And that meant going through the things that I repressed. And so one of the things I want to touch on, guilt and perceived flaws. A lot of times we have a hard time healing because we feel guilty about the trauma that has happened to us. And we feel like it created a stain on who we are. I grew up in my household, we had to be perfect. It was just we had to make perfect grades. We had to be just stand-up citizens. My father was a Black Panther. He was also Muslim. And so I grew up, I was an activist at 4 years old. And I learned I learned community at a very, very early age. I learned to be there for people. I learned to also be strong. My mother taught us, I told you guys before, that the whole, don't cry, you're okay. Get up, dust yourself off. Learned that. Education was thrown, like you had to make, there was no such thing as a B. Like I had to make A's. I had to go to college. Didn't finish because I was a rebel. Felt like I'm grown. I don't want to do what y'all tell me to do, so I'm not going to do it. So I didn't finish college for that reason. It was no other reason, but because it was my decision to make, and that was the decision that I wanted to make. But it was something that we had to do. Those were the things. I had to be the perfect person. I felt like when I was younger, my family put me on this pedestal, and I have become that person. When people meet me, I don't think that anybody really can say anything negative about me, simply because I wanted to be that way, just because that's how I was groomed. Going through this process, and because of that, I lived the life of a perfectionist. And so when things weren't perfect, my life would fall apart. When I wasn't the person that everybody could rely on, I didn't feel comfortable. And so things that had happened to me in my past that didn't align with that perfectionism, I erased it. It just wasn't a thing for me. And I just would live my life in a certain way. Dealing with this, going through this process, creating Heal Black Girl, I realized that I needed to be able to accept the flaws that I had. I needed to be, in order for me to be a real person, I had to say, I've gone through this as well. And so one of the things that I dealt with, and I'm sharing this only because I want you guys to feel, if you're hesitant, not that you have to share, but if you are hesitant about healing, me sharing my story, I want you to feel like healing is necessary. You may not have gone through anything as traumatic as what I'm about to tell you, but if it was traumatic to you, then you need to heal from it. And so I told my daughter's 20, and we have an amazing relationship. And we talk all the time, except for when I'm in a space where I feel like I can't share certain things with her because I want to protect her. And so I was telling her about this part of the slide, and I was explaining to her about shadow work, and I started to cry. And she started to cry. She didn't even know what I was crying for. And because I asked her if she wanted to come. And I said, well, let me prepare you first, because I don't want you to cry in front of everybody. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to speak about. And so she kind of like held her breath, because again, this is a situation where I'm mommy, right? So I'm the hero. I'm perfect in my kids' eyes, and I set the standard. And so my daughter, though, has been, she knows that I'm kind of going through this journey, and so she's actually been creating this safe space for me. Her being an adult is just, being the parent of an adult is weird. But her being an adult has been a blessing. And she's created this safe space for me, and she's made me feel comfortable enough to be able to share my story, because I felt like I can't do it with anybody else, but I have her. But with her being my daughter, there's certain things that I don't want to share with her. And so I told her, I said, okay, well, I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna talk about beforehand so that you can prepare yourself. So she's like, she took a deep breath and she did not let it go until I got finished. And I told her, I said, this is the first time, I'm 40 years old. This happened to me when I was 22. It's the very first time that I've spoken about it out loud. Like, I've never even said it to myself out loud. I've never written it down, nothing. But I was raped when I was 22 years old. My baby was 2. And it was by the person I was in a relationship with. And when I said that to her, again, it was the very first time that I had ever said that out loud. And I had a rush of emotion. She didn't. And I'm just crying, and she's not. And I allowed myself to go through what I needed to go through. I stopped crying, and she said, are you okay? I said, are you okay? Because you're not having a reaction. And she said, I'm not gonna cry now. She said, I wanted to make sure you were okay first. And so I got myself together, and in that moment I realized the strength in being vulnerable. Because the people that you think that you're protecting yourself from are the people who are going to protect you. Now, she told me she didn't want to come after that, which I understood, but it was a moment that we needed to have. And it was something, I probably would not have told this story this way had I not had that conversation with her, because I didn't know that was going to come. My baby's 20. I'm mommy. How are you being my anchor right now? In that moment, that was a big moment for me, because part of the reason that I repressed that was because I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed. Like, it happened to me, but I didn't, for the longest time, I felt like it was my fault because I'm in a relationship with this person. So it had to have been something I did. So I never, for all these years, I could never understand why it happened. I never talked to him about it. I never didn't talk to anybody about it because I didn't understand it. I was embarrassed. It was also being this perfect person. It was a stain on my character. So that was absolutely not something that I could just let out, because what is that going to make me look like now? Now I'm a little broken, you know? And so that was something that I repressed. I didn't really realize that I repressed it because I just kind of pushed through it. And then when I talked to her, knowing that how strong my daughter is, but also knowing how sensitive, she's very emotional, she's very compassionate, and her holding in her reaction for me to have mine was everything I needed. I needed that to be able to move past. So if you ever find yourself, I say all of that to say, again, that's what comes with doing shadow work. But if you ever find yourself, because we do it all the time, we feel like, I have to be strong, 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 I have to be strong. And that creates such a barrier to relationships. It creates a barrier to you allowing yourself to let somebody love you. And that was one thing that I realized. I was dealing with a whole other situation prior to me having a conversation with my daughter. And after I talked about that, a light bulb went off. Because I'm in relationships, I'm perceived to be a runner. I am. I'm not going to stay for nothing I don't want to be a part of. But that helped me realize why I run. It's a defense mechanism for me. That's how I protect myself. Because I'm never going to allow myself to be in a situation where somebody can take advantage of me. But talking to her and seeing her put her feelings aside to make me feel comfortable, let me know that people do want to love me. I'm not letting them. So again, when we talked about before, not pointing blame, because it's very easy to say, you don't listen. You're not there for me. You didn't show up to, whatever I had going on. You didn't answer the phone. You didn't respond to this. We all have life going on, right? And so instead of pointing the finger, instead of throwing blame at people, you have to look inward and say, what am I doing to create this barrier? And talking to her about that made me realize you don't let anybody love you. So now when I leave here, I'm gonna have to go home
Do some more shadow work.
and journal again.
Me too.
Okay. But again, those were my perceived flaws. Because I don't let nobody love me because that happened to me. Amongst some other things, but that was the connection that I made. That was a perceived flaw. That incident that happened to me that I had no control over made me feel like I had to stay. And so I felt like, can't nobody love me like that. So until I figure out what that is, I'm just not gonna let it happen. Right? And so those are the things that we have to deal with when we're doing shadow work. Again, it's not can be. It will be very challenging. It will be life-changing. It will be difficult. It will be hard. You're going to have to confront a lot of things that you probably didn't want to, but it is absolutely necessary. It's going to allow you to put yourself in a position to embrace your personal growth in your journey. It promotes self-acceptance. It really does. When you, like I talked about being broken before, you have to allow yourself to be broken in order to rebuild. And so when you go through and you identify these things that have broken you, you now have the authority to build yourself back up, right? So it's not, what happened to you may have hurt. It may feel bad. It may make you feel weak. It may make you feel emotional. But you take authority over it. It happened to you. It's not your story. It's not who you are. And now that you know, now that you've accepted, okay, this happened to me. And I'm okay. Now you can move past it and you can build yourself back up. Once you learn to accept your own flaws, nobody can use them against you. That was a big thing for me. That's what confidence is. Once you accept because we all have them. We all have flaws. And it's difficult to embrace them because, especially if you've never been in a situation where somebody is telling you that, you're this and you're that. A lot, we don't get fed into a lot. We do it on our own, right? one thing that I hear a lot from men, they don't compliment me at all. Like people, for whatever reason, people feel like I get it a lot. I don't. And the reason being is because they think that other men are doing it too much and they don't want to give me a big head. I'm like, little did you know, I'm working on that. Like, please tell me I'm pretty, because nobody's doing it. Like, I have to tell myself in the mirror because they're not doing it. But that's one of the things. And people say that it's not a problem, but it is, because that actually cultivates my insecurities. It goes back to that validation. People have a perceived notion of who you are, and they treat you as such. They don't really know who you are on the inside. And so, because I've gone through that all my life, I'm not, when people give me a compliment, I do not know how to take it. Because I don't get them. People think I do, but I don't. I don't know how to take them. It makes me uncomfortable. I tell people, don't tell me I'm pretty, tell me I'm smart. I want to hear it. All the time. That is my response. Every single time that I go home, I'm like, I'm going to be told. What's the issue? And so I had to accept my attachment to needing validation. I did not think that I was a person who needed validation until I went on this journey. And so once I realized why I needed validation, I just started validating myself. That's self-acceptance. So when you get to the point where you can acknowledge your flaws, because they may not even be flaws to you, but maybe what the world sees as flaws, what you feel like is a hindrance or something that you want to change. Once you start to accept those things, other people have no choice but to accept them. Again, that's that alignment, right? That's that alignment. And so some of the techniques, again, it's very similar to the mindfulness practices, journaling, therapy. One of the, y'all said that anybody been to therapy? What's the little light thing called? Have y'all done that? Yes. It's the devil. Did you do it? Did you like it? It's the devil, right?
Yeah.
At first I didn't think it was gonna work, because I'm like, it's a light. Like, what are we doing? I think a light, all this, no. That is not, ooh. I don't even know if I can say that if you go to therapy and they say they want to do that, take a minute, pray about it, because it's one of the things that will open this up. You start to I think that's the purpose of it, is to get you to kind of think about like repressed situations and things that just doing that inner work. But therapy, meditation with shadow work is also, anything with shadow work is difficult. Meditation with shadow work, do it in like 5-minute increments. Do not do a 15-20 minute meditation where you're doing shadow work, because you will probably fall into depression. Not probably, you will fall into depression. You will. Just because it's very, very heavy. It's really heavy. But self-reflection practices are really good when you're doing shadow work. Any questions?
What did you say the light process was?
What is it called? EMDR. Yeah. It's the devil.
Either like lights flashing, like 2 lights or something like that, or like buzzing.
Okay. The brain is weird.
It is. Because you're thinking like, how is this like? Because that's what I was thinking. I'm one of those people that feel like I can't be hypnotized.
Yeah, same.
So I'm looking at this light like there is no way. Oh my god! Like that was I was mad at the lady. Like, don't ever do that to me again. I have control problems. Reflective prompts. These are questions or statements that's designed to facilitate deep self-reflection. I left a journal. I have a journal coming out that is full of prompts. And it's just basically, it's different activities that you can do. It's a lot of prompts that get you to just kind of, because sometimes when we don't know where to start and we don't know what to talk about or think about, you need a prompt. You can Google any type of like reflective prompt. It just helps you kind of start the journaling process. They assist in uncovering hidden thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, and they can catalyze important realizations about yourself. Again, my favorite part of journaling is the reflective aspect of it. Being able to write something down. Like I will go through journals from like years ago and read them, and either I'm super sad because why am I not where I said I wanted to be, or I'm super grateful that I'm not in that place anymore. But either way, knowing that helps me. The art of self-reflection lies in asking ourselves the right questions. Going through this journey, we lie to ourselves a lot, simply because the truth is difficult. I tell people all the time, I don't want nobody telling me about me. I don't like to hear about myself. I get defensive when people try to tell me about me, because I'm like, you don't know me. But the real reason is that even though they don't know me, for what they see me, and they're pulling out things that I didn't want them to know. So I'm like, let's talk about something else. But you have the part of the reason this is difficult is because you have to be honest. Somebody said something on TikTok the other day that just blew my mind. She said that when we make excuses, we're lying for God, and God don't need us to lie for Him. And that hit me. So because it's like, because again, when you have faith, you have to trust the process. That's what faith is, right? Trust the process. And when you're going through something and you're, I'm okay. I do it all the time. Some people have told me that my word is, I'm amazing. And I know that I say that a lot. They ask me how I am and I say, I'm amazing. I'm not always. And I'm a big believer in law of manifestation. But I'm also learning that it's okay to be honest. The law of attraction, sorry. The law of attraction is a lot of lying. It's a lot of lying. You lie to yourself to get things to come to you, right? But what I'm learning is that if you're not allowing yourself to be honest about your process, those things are not going to come anyway, because you don't believe the lie. That's the thing. If you're gonna lie, you gonna lie. You gotta. That is why sociopaths tend to get what they. Listen, I ain't gonna tell y'all what I'm dealing with somebody, and I'm like, why is this person's life so just great? Because he's horrible. Because he kind of crazy. Yeah. Like, he literally believes his lies. And so, like, if you are that person, cool. You will get everything that you put out there. You can be delusional, as they say, and it will work out for you. But if you're not that person, that's not going to work for you. It's not. But it's okay to be honest in the moment and be hopeful for the future, right? Because that's going to allow you to get to the space where you need to be. But the thing is that you have to be honest. It's okay when somebody asks you, how's your day going? And you have had a horrible day. It is okay to say, well, it's not going that well. I've had a horrible day. Tomorrow will be better. That's the difference, right? So you have to be honest. Some practical steps. We talked about self-care. You want to prioritize yourself. Another thing that I have learned, and I'm very, very big on right now, is selfishness. Somebody called me selfish the other day, and I was excited. That was a compliment. I've never been selfish in my life. And I took that and I ran with it, because I said to myself, I am finally standing up for myself. I am finally doing what I want to do. You have to be selfish, because that is the only way that you'll be able to take care of other people. It's the only way. Because people will wear you out. They will bombard you with the things that they're going through, the things that they're dealing with no concern about you whatsoever. And again, we get to the point where we start to blame them. Oh, you didn't care about me, but it's not their fault. You teach people how to treat you. It's your fault. You allowed that to happen, so you can't blame them. Be selfish. Create healthy boundaries. I'm a big believer in that. One of the boundaries that I had to create because of the situation that happened to me in my past, I don't like people touching me. And I didn't know why. I've always been like that, and I didn't know why until I went through this process, and I kind of, was going through like all of my triggers. And like I had to tell my son, because he's a very affectionate kid, and he'll come up to me, like I'm washing dishes, he'll come up to me and hug me. And that, like, my body goes into shock. And I didn't know why. And when I found out, I had to tell him, when you want to hug mommy, you have to say, hey, mommy, can I give you a hug? And now he'll say it, and we're perfectly fine. That's a healthy boundary. I'm able to say, hey, I need this type of space. And he can say, okay, I can do that. A lot of times we don't want to create boundaries with people because we think that that's going to, push them away or they're going to get offended. But you have to be able to protect yourself. When you learn what your triggers are, you have to create boundaries to protect yourself from dealing with those triggers in a way that's going to throw you into shock, because that's going to throw the whole, everything that you're dealing with, everything is going to throw it completely off. You're gonna start all over. So you have to create healthy boundaries. Positive self-talk. Encourage yourself with kind and loving words. Affirmations are really big. I have like sticky notes everywhere in my house. On the way here, I record myself. I recorded myself for doing affirmations. I listen to them on the way here. I meditate to myself sometimes. I had to text someone, I was like, is that egotistical? Because it's like, it's me, it's my voice. My voice is soothing to me. So it's familiar. I know it. It's a safe space. And so there are some affirmations that I like, then I'll record them, and then I just listen to those. Instead of, if there's a time where I don't want to just stand in the mirror and talk to myself, then I'll just listen to the affirmations on my phone. Nourish your body. Again, we talked about the regular exercise. Balanced nutrition. It's very important. I don't like things that are trendy. Like right now, like eating healthy is trendy. That should just be a thing anyway. But I like food, and I don't like people to tell me what to do. And so it's like, I'm very rebellious at heart. It's like, I'm gonna eat this steak because you tell me it's not good for me. But then it's like, since I've been on this journey, a lot of my appetite has changed. And I realized, again, we talked about your mind and your body being in alignment. Your body will tell you when something is not good for you. I'm severely anemic, and I'm not gonna say I can't. I don't like to take medicine. I don't take the medicine because it makes my stomach hurt. I don't really like to eat meat, but like once or twice a month, I have to have beef because I don't take the medicine. Like my body is like, yo, you need to go eat a steak. I'm like, that's nasty. Like, but you need it though. Like, so I'll eat a steak. And it's only once or twice. But your body will tell you when you have cravings, it's because you're missing something. I would suggest though, if you're my daughter is addicted to vitamins right now, and we have found a vitamin for everything. Like everything imaginable. So if you're having some sort of craving, if it's a food craving and it's an unhealthy food, I would suggest looking up a vitamin that coincides with that particular food and just take those vitamins. It'll give you the same thing that food is going to give you. The reason being is because when you start to go on this journey, you'll realize there's a lot of things, for me, a lot of different foods make me feel heavy. And it's like, when you feel heavy, you're not productive. You just want to go to sleep. Well, that's the itis, right? Like whenever you just overeat, you're not productive. It also boggles your mind now. You can't really think. Like, you're not alert. And so you just kind of have to figure it out for yourself. Listen to your body. Your body will tell you what's working for you and what doesn't. Don't let somebody tell you you should eat this, you should eat that. Everybody's different. Try different things out. Learn when you're eating, if you feel energized after you've eaten something, you should probably write that down and put that into your diet. If you feel sluggish after you've eaten something, write that down too, and try not to eat that as much. But everybody's different. You're gonna have different things, except for water. We all need water. Please, y'all drink water all the time, like forever. Water is amazing. I love it. Water. I do my affirmations while I'm drinking water too. It's just a practice that I learned, just because our body is mostly water, and I feel like water just kind of is like the cycle of life. But this is how I nourish my body. Stay connected. You want to cultivate, supportive relationships. One thing that I want to make known is it is absolutely okay to cut people off without explanation. You don't owe anybody an explanation to anything. This is your life. I don't care if you've known them for 20 years. If they are not supportive of your journey, if they are not conducive to your growth, if they are not... Now, when you get into reciprocity and like when we say, well, I need them to give me what I give them, that's impossible. That we have to stop thinking like that, because nobody's you. You cannot expect people to do for you what you do for them, because nobody's you. but they have to be able to pour into you some type of way. And if you are dealing with somebody, and I don't care what type of relationship it is, and they are not, you feel just drained whenever you're dealing with that person, you feel negative, you feel like it's just too much, it's okay to cut them off. You can cut them off and maybe later come back, but even if you don't want to come back, that's perfectly okay. You need to cultivate supportive relationships, and you want to engage with people that uplift and inspire you. I love words. I consider myself to be an etymologist, and there are words that I'm kind of throwing out of my vocabulary. Motivation is one of those. I replace motivation with inspiration. Reason being is motivation is forced. If somebody has to motivate you, you didn't really want to do it. That's a forced action. And I believe in living my life through inspired action. Inspired means that that's something that from your spirit, from your soul, it makes you feel good. You want to do it. So you're inspired, right? And so just think about that in terms of when you're engaging with people, do you feel like this person is motivating you or inspiring you? If they're motivating you, that means that they want you to do what they want you to do. If they're inspiring you, that means that they're cultivating the things that you want to do. The power of community and healing. The importance of a supportive community. It plays a crucial role in easing your healing journey. A lot of times we don't like to talk about the things that we go through because we feel like we're going to be judged. People are going to judge you anyway.
They already did.
Before you, that's just who, as people, that's just who we are. Don't take it personal. Anybody read the book, The 4 Agreements? It's a very short book, but it'll slap you in the face. One of the 4 agreements is not to take things personally. In part of the book, the guy says, even as extensively as somebody was to come up and punch you in the face, sir, you mean I can't respond? Like, what? Don't take it personally. Not taking things personally has probably saved my life. Honestly. Because when you take things personally, you react. And a lot of times, we are not aware of how we're going to react. Like I told y'all, I just react. And so you have to learn, even as something as strenuous as somebody coming and punching you in the face, you cannot, because the thing is, they may not even be mad at you. You're just in the proximity of their anger. And it takes a big person to be able to not get upset when somebody comes and punches them in the face. But you never know what that person needed in them. They may need compassion. And if they come and do something like that and you respond with compassion, imagine what their reaction is going to be. And so we have to learn, when you are trying to find a community, understand that people are going to judge you. So you can't feel like, well, I can't share my experiences because I don't want to be judged. The only reason people judge you is because they see themselves in that situation. And so they need you to step up and say, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm going through. Because it gives them permission to say to themselves, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm going through. I talked about healing circles. These are some things that we do with Heal Black Girl. It's just a community where we come together and we just talk. We just talk. Talking is very healing. It allows you to get things off that you normally wouldn't be able to. And this one is just kind of letting you guys know about Heal Black Girl, joining our circles, participating in our workshops. I'm very heavy, mostly on more TikTok than anything else. And then the content that I have, I do write articles. Healblackgirl.com is my website. You can find a lot of things on there. I also have a Telegram. Right now, I don't have a lot of people on it, but I tell people to join the Telegram all the time, just because a lot of people, like, in the middle of the night, a lady told me on TikTok the other day that she didn't have anybody to reach out to, so she reached out to her ex, and it just threw her back into, like, what I'm like, oh, sweetheart, you should not have done that. And I told her to join the Telegram. I said, whenever you have the moment, just text me. Like, I'll respond. It's not a robot. It's actually me. I do put, like, affirmations in there. I put different quotes in there. It's a lot of things, like, again, resources. You can find the Telegram on, it's healblackgirl.com. It's join the community. But again, it's a way for people to reach out if they don't have other people that they can talk to. The space is safe. It's other people that are going through this healing journey, and it's just a space for you to be able to communicate without that judgment. We're all going through something. We're all dealing with something, so you won't have judgment. You're just going to have people who are understanding of what you're going through, and we help each other. Okay, so we're going to create our personal growth and healing plan. So if you guys have something to write with. So this is going to be your first step in your healing journey. It's your blueprint, and it's going to be tailored to your needs, your goals, and your lifestyle. The healing plan is going to help you identify your areas of healing. It's going to allow you to set intentions. You're going to choose specific healing practices. And then we're going to set a schedule. Consistency is very, very crucial in the healing journey, because it's easy to kind of get engulfed in life and forget that you're healing because life is happening. But again, this process is ongoing for forever. So don't ever feel like, okay, I'm going to do this for 30 days and I'm going to be good. Because when we talk about triggers, you can be in a space where you feel like you're good, and then somebody can say the word banana and you just melt because something may have happened. Maybe you choked on a banana when you were 2. So that's a trigger. And so we're going to just set a schedule just to kind of keep you connected to your goals. Everything that I do in life, I like to start backwards and work my way forward. Meaning that I tell myself where I want to be, and that allows me to create a plan for what I'm going to do to get there.
Can you start over?
Start over?
Or
Yeah.
the first couple.
I can't see that.
Oh, okay. No, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be on the other pages.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, it's not big enough. You write it down.
I can't see.
I can get it. I took a picture.
Okay, so the first step. Let me see. Let me make sure.
You know, Danielle, you real good with them pictures.
I know. I was just trying to take a picture, but I can't. It's not clear.
Danielle, real good with taking pictures.
This is like 20, and I'm like, oh. And it's also so like the reflection of myself.
That don't do nothing. Okay. So the first one is going to be identify areas of healing, and we do that through reflection. So you're gonna spend however much time you need to reflecting on areas in your life that need healing and growth. So I consider these to be the 4 pillars of healing: emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual. So when you're going through the emotional reflection process, you want to address unresolved feelings. That can be anger, resentment, sadness. The way that you do it is, and if you guys want to, I don't know if when you signed in, if you left your emails, do they leave their emails?
No, I meant to put
If
it
you
on there.
want to leave your emails, I can actually email this
Yeah. please.
to you.
Yeah. That was right. It's not working. It's not working.
I'll send it out. But so one of the easiest way for me to kind of explain reflection is any emotion that's heightened for you. For me, it's anger. I don't get sad. I get angry. I realized it was anger because it's like times when I'm supposed to be sad, I'm not sad, I'm angry. So if it doesn't make sense, if it's an emotion that doesn't make sense, like if it's a happy occasion and you're sad, then that might be something that you need to reflect on. So any emotion that's heightened and it's not making sense to the situation is an emotion that you probably need to reflect on. So during this process, you're going to learn new emotional regulation techniques that's going to help improve your emotional intelligence. And that's going to help with just developing healthier relationships. One of the best ways to improve your emotional intelligence is listening. when you are communicating with somebody, a lot of times we listen to respond. And and everybody does it because we want to get our point across. Everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to say their side of the story. And so we're really not even paying attention to what the other person is saying. We're just waiting for our turn to speak. And so then we speak, and it has absolutely nothing to do with what the other person is saying, right? And so when we're communicating, you have to learn to actively listen. And when you're actively listening, the best way to do it is that after the person is talking, you say, I heard you say, and then repeat them. That's going to let them know that you were actually paying attention, but it's also going to, you can kind of put that into your mind that this is what was important to that person, so let me take that into consideration. That improves your emotional intelligence. Physical. This is, again, better nutrition, regular exercise, getting adequate sleep. This is something that I used to be a person who could sleep for like 3 or 4 hours a night and be good. I know, like, people would tell me, you know, man, take a nap. What is that? I don't know what that is. I don't take naps. Now I sleep all the time. I love it. It's amazing because I get to go to that space. Like, I get to kind of tune the world out. And so I probably get too much sleep. But I also felt guilty about it. That was another thing, that I would feel guilty about sleeping, because when I was younger, there was no sleeping in. We couldn't, like, on the weekends, absolutely not. You have to get up early. It's Saturday, I don't care. You clean it up. 8 o'clock, yes. Mm-hmm. And so I now, as an adult, I feel guilty about getting too much sleep. And so that was something that I had to learn. But it's also, it's allowing my physical health to be better. And that coincides with eating as well. When you start going through this, even if you feel like you want to eat bad, your body's not gonna let you. I love ice cream. I don't know the last time I had ice cream. It makes me sad, but I can't eat it. It just doesn't make me feel good. And it's like, I gotta be okay with that. But your body will tell you. The mental. That's gonna focus on your thoughts, beliefs, attitudes, and your mental health. With the mental aspect of it, I find meditation helps a lot with that. Meditation helps a lot because it clears your mind. Spiritual, it relates to your sense of purpose. Not everybody believes in God. I love God, but not everybody believes in God, and that's okay. When we talk about spirituality, we're talking about your soul, who you are in the inside. I don't ever like to make anybody feel like the things that I talk about does not apply to them because of something that I do, because you can take any situation and apply it to yourself. Spiritual is just about who you are internally. And so your sense of purpose, understanding what, why you're here. I don't know if it was Socrates or Plato, and it may not have been either one of them, whoever it said that the 2 most important days are the day you were born and the day you figure out why. I figured it out. Okay. I figured it out last week. It was the most amazing. I went outside and I just screamed, hollered, jumped for joy because I was listening to this other guy, and he was talking about how our birthdays are so important because it's transformation. We're supposed to grow every year, and our birthdays are a celebration of that growth. And a lot of times people who are not growing are unhappy or miserable because they don't know their purpose. So they're here and they're basically just kind of wandering around with nothing to do. And so the spiritual part of it is when you start to figure out your purpose, and it's fun. It's fun because you get to explore who you are. All of my life, I have done everything based off of what other people have wanted me to do. And it took me to 40 to finally start living life based on the things that I wanted to do. And I am having the absolute most fun. And that's the spiritual aspect of it. You want to make sure that you're setting intentions. You have to set intentions because it keeps you grounded, and it holds you accountable to your journey, right? So when I start my day with setting intentions, because it helps me throughout my day. When I wake up in the morning, I say, this is how I want my day to go. Sometimes I write it down, sometimes I record it in my phone, sometimes it's just a mental thing, but I set intentions for my day. And oddly enough, most of the time it tends to go that way because I set those intentions. When I'm not setting intentions, I notice when things are just crazy, like just erratic, and I'm just like, I'm going back to bed because this is not what I expected. And so when you're doing the healing journey, you have to set your intentions. These are your principles. These are your principles for your life. Be as clear and specific as possible. For instance, instead of saying, I want to be healthier, you can say, I want to incorporate a 30-minute walk into my daily routine. That is an intention that's going to hold you accountable. Because if you just say, I want to be healthier, that can mean anything, right? You can be like, well, I went outside and walked the dog. That was good enough. I'm healthy. If you set intentions, then you're actually holding yourself accountable to the principles that you set for yourself. And then you want to check in with your intentions regularly. So if you want to do it weekly, bi-weekly, every month, you set your intentions, and then you kind of check back in with yourself and make sure that you're on that course. Choosing practices and scheduling those. You want to decide on whatever healing practices resonate with you. We talked about the mindfulness practices, the shadow work, doing the exercises. Whatever practices resonate with you, you want to choose those and schedule them. Make sure, so this is a very disciplined situation. When you're on your healing journey, you have to be disciplined, because like I told you guys before, the first 2 years of my healing journey, I made a decision and I was good with it, and I thought that was fine and everything was hunky-dory. My life's about to change just because I said I wanted it to. I didn't set a schedule, I didn't set intentions, I didn't have a plan, I didn't have a goal, and then 2 years later, here I am starting all the way over because I wasn't intentional enough. So you have to choose your practices, and then you want to schedule them. Be realistic, prioritize, but also be patient with yourself. That's a really big thing. Again, if you fall off, something happens, because life is what it is, don't beat yourself up about it. Wherever you were, just pick it right back up. Goal setting, I use SMART goals for absolutely everything. Everything. Like, just because it helps. I try to be an organized person. So you want to be specific. We talked about that. Instead of saying I want to feel happier, I want to engage in activities that bring me joy, such as reading a book. So what makes you happy? What do you feel like is going to make you happy? Again, this is going to hold you accountable to you. Measurable, when we talked about just going back when you set your intentions and going back and tracking that. Again, this is going to keep you, I put motivated, I should, of course, be taking that word out of vocabulary. This is going to keep you inspired. And it also lets you know if you reach that goal or what you need to do to reach that goal. So an example, a measurable goal could be spend 30 minutes every day engaging in an activity that brings me joy. Every single day. I would recommend, if it's something that's bringing you joy, don't just do it once a week. You can do it for 10 minutes. You can do it for 15 minutes, but don't just do it once a week, because the more you do it, the better you feel. But be very specific. I would even say what that activity is when you're writing it down, whatever that activity is. Achievable means that your goals should be realistic and attainable. So don't say, I'm going to do something that is going to allow me to make $1 million, because you're going to get disappointed. That's not going to happen. Not immediately, right? So make sure that it's achievable and realistic for you, and that it's relevant. So your goal should be relevant to your overall healing and your personal growth objectives, not somebody else. So if one of your healing intentions is to reduce stress, then a relevant goal could be, I'll practice mindfulness meditation for 10 minutes. Not, I'll sit and watch Netflix for an hour. That's not going to reduce stress. That's probably going to bring stress on, right? So make sure that your goals are relevant. Time bound is just basically creating a time frame that's going to allow a sense of urgency. Now, I know I said that we want to be patient with ourselves, but you also want to create urgency, because this is important. It doesn't mean that you have to say, I'm going to be healed by tomorrow. It just means that you have to be intentional about your healing. That's where the urgency comes from.
I
have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
About intent.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a time when I didn't recognize when my boundaries were being crossed because I didn't have any.
Mhm.
Now I'm in a state of like recognizing when things aren't comfortable or when it's like something that clearly didn't go the way I anticipated it to go.
Mhm.
Sometimes I can't react fast enough because I'm not used to reacting. Like I'm used to just letting it slide. And so there's some things where I'm like, okay, the time has expired for you to communicate that. And then there's other times when I'm like, no, I'm gonna go ahead and address it. Would you err on the side of always address it or having like a balance in between the two?
Always address. I don't care if it happened a year ago. Because this is about your personal boundaries. This is about your comfortability.
Do I have expectations that come along with addressing it? Is it just that I addressed it and it was good for me to voice my expectations or my emotions in that particular time?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it that I'm addressing it for another reason? Like, is there a hope? Should I have hope that there is going to
For the
change?
other person,
Yes.
no.
No. So
Absolutely
sometimes,
not.
so it's just good to voice it just because I need to get it out.
Mm-hmm.
What if I feel
And
like
then
it's
too,
better
it's
not to
gonna
say
be,
anything?
but it's gonna. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
There's gonna be different situations.
Okay.
Because there's gonna be situations where you like, I need to address that for my own personal healing. And then you can address things because maybe you do want to mend a relationship. Like, you know what I mean? Let's just say, for instance, with my dad or somebody, you know what I mean? If it's an intimate relationship, if it's something that I want to address because I want to see growth in that relationship, then I address it, you know, and I may address it after I've processed it a little bit, you know what I mean? Just because I want relationship there. If I don't give a damn, I'm gonna address it right now because, hey, this is a boundary, you crossed it, hey, this is what it is.
So what if it's a person that you don't think is like, not that you don't think that they're mentally prepared, but you know they're not gonna receive it the way that you intend. It's
And
not my
you be okay
responsibility
with-
on
you-
how they receive it,
Mhm.
but I'm gonna say it and she's gonna feel attacked rather than me communicating my, like how I felt about it, she's gonna feel attacked, which is only gonna make the situation worse. So is that something that you address or you just keep letting it slide into that?
Oh, no,
person's
you
direction?
can't keep letting it slide because
You're
you're gonna
not-
get passive
yeah.
aggressive.
I think you have to prepare
It's gonna
yourself
go-
for any
yeah,
kind
you
of
do.
reaction.
Yes.
It's gonna, yeah.
Because I've heard that boundaries are actually something that's more for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you set an expectation and you like expect the other person really to just like get along with it. When you set that expectation, when you voice things to them, it's kind of like you have to be prepared with like how you're going to go about it if they don't, if they continue to do the same thing, and what you can do for yourself to still protect yourself and preserve yourself, even if they decide, oh, well, I'm just gonna keep doing it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because they will. Mm-hmm. No, go ahead.
I think the best way to like avoid like the like attack feeling from the other person is to try your best to not use I statements or
Or
No,
you
you-
use I statements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of you,
Yeah.
that makes
Putting
sense.
the responsibility on
I
yourself.
feel this way, or
Yeah.
I am this way, or however.
So I totally get that, but it's my mom, and I think she's just stuck in her ways like most black moms.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And so I don't think that there's anything that, regardless of what I say or how I pamper it up or make it sound like it's me and it's not you, she's still gonna take it as I'm saying the worst things possible about her. It's like this victim, like she's the victim regardless. And so oftentimes I've walked away, but I've done that a multiple of times, and I'm trying to do this thing where I don't just walk away. I'm like, you not respecting my boundaries, I'm done. I used to say 3 chances. My mom, like, she's got unlimited chances, but I've walked away for an extended period of time, but came back because she's my mom.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if, like,
So
now is the
the
things like
fact that you keep coming back
Mhm.
is giving her permission to not change.
Okay.
Whoever it is, get the book, the 4
What's the
agreements.
book? Okay. I would say I
Because
checked
the
out.
first one is not, because from what I'm hearing, because it is your mother, and probably in a lot of other situations, you're taking it personally. And that's why you're deciding the things that you're deciding. Like, this is my mom, I have to give her more chances than I usually. That's personal. You're not responsible for how she takes something in. Even if she is set in her ways, that is on her. That goes back to alignment. I am a big believer. I'm telling you, I'm recording this, but I'm gonna be specific anyway, because I'm just not gonna show this person. But I deal with a person who has a very hard time with taking accountability. And I am a person who needs validation. That don't mesh well. And I just felt like this is lost cause. But I didn't want it to be a lost cause. With your mom, it can be a lost cause, right? Because that's your mom. And so I'm a big believer in alignment. And so as you work on you and you do the things that's necessary for you, like setting your boundaries and sticking to that, if you and your mother are in alignment, then things in her will change. If they don't, then you guys are not in alignment. It doesn't mean that she's less of your mom. But again, and I'm not telling you to cut your mother off, but I understand because I have the same issues with my mom. I have to protect my peace. I went to go cook for her last week, but before that, I probably hadn't spoken to her in I don't know how long. Because I have to protect my peace. There are certain things that we can't communicate about. There's certain things that we can't communicate on. And it bothers me because that's my mom. But like you said, our mothers are stuck in their ways. They won't be, when they start to realize that a lot of people are not really around anymore, they will make the decision either they're going to change or they're not. My mother has told me that she's not going to change. That's perfectly fine. We probably just not going to see that much of each other. And that's also okay. You have to be okay. Like she said, you have to put yourself in a situation where you're okay with every single outcome imaginable in order for you to be able to set those boundaries and stick to them. You teach people how to treat you, even your parents. You are an adult woman, so you deserve a certain level of respect, even from your mother. That was a hard thing for when I'm around my mama. I'm 9 again. And it was a hard thing for me to process. I'm still learning how to process that. But you have to be able to set those boundaries. You can't have those, and you cannot have expectations on another person because you're always going to be disappointed. You can only set expectations for yourself. But then also, you cannot make yourself responsible for how somebody reacts to something that you give them, because that's your right. That is your right to say, you made me feel this way. And sometimes we just need to say it. But you have to tell yourself, she might not receive it well. But that's okay. I still have to say it. Because if you hold on to it, it's going to create even more problems. It's difficult, but it's necessary. It's necessary. Let me see. We talked about that. Okay, so the next steps in your healing journey, again, we're just going to implement your personal healing plan. And I will, again, if you want me to, I'll send this to you so you guys can kind of navigate that a little bit more in detail. But you want to implement your personal healing plan. Start by following the personalized healing plan that you're going to create. Be consistent. If you have a hard time with being consistent, join the Telegram. And I used to be very big on tough love. I'm not anymore. Because I found myself saying to people that I love, I don't want it. I don't want to. I've dealt with it all of my life. And I would tell people, like, I'm on you. Like, I'll do everything that I can to make you a better you. But I realize that I'm just here for support. However you need me to be. I cannot show up in your life the way that I feel comfortable because it's not my life. So if you need to help with the consistency, join the Telegram, and whatever you need from me, I will do my best to give that to you. That goes into engaging with the community as well. Continuous learning. Keep exploring more about healing through books, podcasts, webinars, and other resources. And just remember that this journey is a lifelong process. It is. That sounds scary.
And it hurts your feelings.
But, I mean, for me, it was freeing. It was freeing because I actually look forward to moving into every new chapter. And so it's just how you kind of see things. If you see it as, man, I'm gonna be dealing with this for the rest of my life, and you're gonna have a hard time. But if you see it as, oh, I get to be somebody new tomorrow, then it's going to be an adventure, and you can kind of create that in however way you want. Self-care. You want to prioritize your self-care always. Remember to be kind and patient with yourself throughout your journey. I am a big believer on like the main character energy thing. This is my story. This is my life. Like, you guys are just supporting actors. I appreciate you for being here. This is all about me. But you should all feel that way about yourself, because it is. Again, going back to alignment. People come into your life because you called them to you. For what, every time you interact, even if it's like somebody at the gas station, if you have a brief conversation with somebody at a gas station, it's because either you needed something from them or they needed something from you. This is your story. This is your world. Everything that is happening for you, not to you. It's happening for you. When you start to think that way, then you'll be able to kind of take everything that's going on. You'll take it in, and you'll be able to take control of what you're dealing with, what you're going through, like the situation. This is your world. Your mom has to act accordingly. That sounds a little harsh, but it is the absolute truth. And I tell people, when I tell people, they're like taking it like, you are so self-centered. I'm supposed to be. In my world, the sun does revolve around me. Now, when I come into your world, I'm okay being a star because the sun revolves around you. You have to think that way, because that's you taking authority over your life. And when you think that way, then you tell people, you're in my world, this is how you're going to treat me. If you don't want to treat me the way I need to be, then you can leave. You can exit, and it's fine. So you have to have that mentality, and it is perfectly okay. And everybody else has it too. It's not me feeling like the sun revolves around me does not take away from your sun revolving around you. It doesn't. We are all in this to create our own story. So you have to do what's best for you. So self-care is very, very important. And if you need to, absolutely seek professional help. Trauma is very difficult to deal with. And when you start to get into the shadow work, if you are a person who, a lot of people can't afford therapy, which is why I don't press it a lot, but there are resources that will help you with that. If you're at that stage and you need to seek therapy, then you can reach out. There are some resources that will help you with that. But if you're not at that stage and you need community, I am always available. Some of the resources that I do have, some books that I would suggest is The Body Keeps the Score.
That's a good one.
It is a good one.
I have that on the dashboard of my car.
Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness. I have not read that yet, but it's in my Amazon cart. Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde is one of my absolute favorites. I love Audre. I think I read that when I was like 9. It's probably crazy. I probably shouldn't have been reading that when I was 9. Some podcasts. Therapy for Black Girls. And Hey Girl, I love Alex L. I don't even know if she's doing this podcast anymore. Like, I think it's still available, but I don't know if she has any new ones. Some online resources, Black Girls in Om. I absolutely love this site. They talk a lot about meditation and have a lot of resources for that. Brown Sisters Speak, that's on Instagram. Black Emotional and Mental Health Collective. And then some counselors, Chosen Counseling Services. I partner with them, which is why I put them up here. And anybody that reaches out to them, if you mention that you're a part of Heal Black Girl, then they'll offer you a discount. But she's a licensed professional counselor. Okay, so as we come to an end, I want you guys to stand up. We're gonna do some affirmations. Okay, so repeat after me. Or can y'all read it? We're gonna say it together.
Yeah, sure.
Ready?
I know we can't read it.
Can't read
Or I
it?
can't see it.
Can't see it?
Okay.
Yeah.
I am worthy
I am worthy
of healing,
of healing,
growth,
growth,
and happiness.
and happiness.
I embrace
I embrace
all parts of myself.
all parts of myself.
I am growing
I am growing
from a place of self-love.
from a place of self-love.
I am courageous
I am courageous
and embrace
Embrace
the process of personal growth.
the process of personal growth.
Y'all don't sound like y'all believe this. Every day,
Every day,
I become stronger and more resilient.
I become stronger and more resilient.
My journey of healing
My journey of healing
is a journey of love towards myself.
is a journey of love towards myself.
I am the author of my own story
I am the author of my own story
and creator of my own healing.
and creator of my own healing.
I trust in my ability to heal and transform.
I trust in my ability to heal and transform.
I honor my struggles
I honor my struggles
and celebrate my resilience.
And celebrate my resilience.
So I thank you guys for allowing me to be in your space, for sharing my story, my openness, and just being willing to embrace me and my journey. Hopefully this will catapult you all to get on your own healing journey, your personal growth journey. And again, anything that you may need while on this journey, you can reach out to me, healblackgirl.com, join the Telegram. All social media, Never Just Jazz. I can give you my phone number and email after this if you want. Again, I do have a journal that is coming out on healblackgirl.com. It's right now it's at a pre-sale, but there is a digital version that's available right now if you want it. And the journal, actually, the first part of the journal is a 7-day quick start to your healing process. For every day, there's activities that you'll do every single day that starts the healing journey. And then after the 7 days, there's prompts, affirmations, meditations, and things like that you can kind of journal and go through. So if you're interested, that is on the website as well. Does anybody have any questions for me?
How are you feeling?
I feel amazing. Thank you.
Is that the truth? Is that
No,
the
it is.
story?
I know it's at home.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you asked me just made me, just filled me up. Yes, I feel amazing. Being able to do this, just that fills me up. So I'm glad. I'm very grateful that you guys allow me. This is a very sacred space. So I'm very glad, very grateful that you guys allowed me into your space. So I feel amazing. Thank you for asking. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Last question.
Yes.
I promise. So, there's a question that I've asked myself for a very long time that I haven't been able to find an answer to. So I'm wondering if you can provide me guidance into maybe figuring out why I can't find an answer to this question. The reason why I keep giving my mom so many chances is because I know that if I officially give her the talk about why she hurt me, how she hurt me, I will never talk to her again. That's typically what happens with the people that I've done that with. Like, because there isn't any coming back. I don't care what you do to improve whatever. You've lost me.
Mm-hmm.
However, I've been playing the good daughter,
Mhm.
right? So, I can't have that conversation yet because I don't know why I'm afraid to let her go.
Because it's your mom.
Yeah, it's your mom.
You've been
It gotta be
tethered.
more than that though,
you've
'cause
been
I'm always
tethered.
like,
You
family don't mean nothing.
You gotta understand, you've been tethered to that woman
Yeah.
since before your entire existence.
That's the only reason is because it's my mom.
No.
I literally cut off everybody else. in
No,
my
it's
family.
not. It's once you learn, because once you learn how to, once you do start implementing boundaries with y'all, you may, you don't even know, you may like start a whole different relationship.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You gotta open your mind to not only like the death of an old relationship, more than that, grieve that, but at the same time, open your mind to it. When I do tell my mom how this is how, she gonna go sit back and think on that because she's tethered to you, and then she maybe I don't know, and be like, hey, you know. Maybe we can work on it. Well, if she not, you gotta focus on you. You gotta know what you need from the relationship. And if
So
and if it's
that's
a-
the
and if
question
it's a
that I'm
bad-
trying to
and if it's
figure
a
out.
bad
What is
thing-
it that I want?
So
or
can I
desire
ask you a
to have
question?
From her? Yes.
It's a very personal
Okay.
question. Do you feel, are you a person who gives because you feel like that's the only way that you'll receive love?
No.
Okay. Candidly, I feel like that's a lie.
You feel like that's a lie?
Or at the very least,
Okay.
a lie in the case of your mom.
So I think that I did that for a very long time. Like also being who everybody else wanted or desired me to be. So I feel like I decided to let that go officially. I'm not if it's not what I want, then I'm not doing it. I'm not participating in it. But for some reason, with my mom, there's a want or a need there that I haven't figured out, or otherwise she would have been gone. She would have been dropped like the rest of
So your mom represents a space of security for you, because your mother, whatever happens, and I'm not speaking personally. I'm speaking generally. Whatever happens between you and your mother, that's gonna always be your mother. But she represents a space of security for you. So you feel, because you're making this decision for her right now, and you feel like if you have this conversation, you don't know what she's going to do.
Well, so
You
I've
just-
had it multiple times.
Mhm.
She don't. I mean, it's not that she don't hear it,
Mm-hmm.
or I mean, she chooses. Maybe she hears it, and I know that she does because it comes out later in like her not saying I'm sorry for it, whatever the particular things are. She'll just be like, "Oh, you think I'm a bad mother because I did X, Y, Z,"
Mhm.
like that. So I know that she hears me.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had the conversation multiple times, and I've gone, like, I didn't talk to my mom the entire 4 years I was in college. Like, not a single word, didn't answer phone calls. But for some reason, I keep coming back, or either letting her back, or like, what she'll do is, it's never an apology, but it's like I'm gonna take you out to dinner, I'm gonna buy you this, like the nice gestures.
What do
right?
you want from it?
That's
what you
the
gotta
question that
figure
I don't know. And I
That-
said
that's-
until I figure that
yeah.
out, she's gonna keep being able to like exist.
Try inner child work.
Okay.
Do you know,
Inner child healing.
without telling us like exactly, do you know exactly what, because you're saying that,
So what I think generally it is that I want something that I'll never be able to give. Like she'll never be able to do for me
Yes.
what I want.
yes.
That I recognize. But even in recognizing it, I don't think that that's something that I'll
You
not
haven't
ever
accepted
want.
it yet.
Right, I don't think
Yeah.
that that's something that I'll not ever want.
Yeah.
Because I wanted the love of a mother. She was never able to give me that, and no matter how much she tried to make up for it now with my kids, she'll never be able to be that to me.
And
But
now
why
you-
is it that? Am I ever gonna get over that desire? If
Yes.
so, how do I?
So the
Because
way
you're
that
right,
you,
and
the
you're
way you
gonna-
get over it is that you learn how to fulfill yourself in that space. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it's going to be difficult because I'm dealing with the same thing. Is that me realizing that, because I've never been a person that thought that I needed validation from other people until I started this journey. But I had to also realize that I'm never going to get the validation from other people because they either don't want to give it to me, they don't know how to give it to me. So I had to stop putting that expectation on them. And I had to figure out, I haven't yet, but I know that what I need to do, what you are seeking from her, that you'll probably never get, you have to figure out how to give that to yourself.
Yes.
And when I do that, is there a reason for her to be present?
Yes.
No.
Yes. So when you do that,
You're gonna accept her
so
as-
right
as-
now
as
you're
she is.
feeling that way because
And
you
she
feel
never
like
changed.
you want to cut out the
Yeah.
problem. But
Yes.
when you get to the point where you have learned how to fill that space, there will no longer be a problem.
Yeah.
So you will be okay with her being around and it won't bother you. But you have to figure out what it is that you're lacking and how you can give that to yourself.
Heal the inner child, and you'll be alright.
So I went to therapy with Bethany once, and she told me, she was like, you talk like a full-grown adult. Every single time you talk, every time I've heard you speak, you sound like an adult. The
Until you
moment that you talk about your mom, you sound
Yeah.
like a 15-year-old broken child.
That's the part you gotta deal with. You gotta heal her. You gotta
Yeah.
be there for her. You gotta let
That's
her
what
know
that EDMR
she's
situation
soft
did for
and
me.
that that she's safe and she's comfortable and she's, you know, you gotta be there for her, for the 15-year-old Jada. That's who you gotta be there for.
Right, sit down and write a letter to yourself.
And I hate to be interrupted, but, like I don't remember, I don't know if you remember, when I came out, cause I'm a lesbian. When I came out, I told my mom told my dad, but then my dad passed away. And for 15 years, my mom cut me off. I mean, that's it. I had to deal with trying to figure out why, excuse my language, why the hell did she cut me off? I didn't do shit to her. Excuse my language. I hate to fucking say it like that.
No,
but
you're fine.
cause I just like, okay, I'm trying to find myself and I came out and I like hurt her. I didn't do anything, but she just like, even to this day. So what I had to do, and I wrote a letter to her saying, you know what? I love you, but I have to. I'm done. Cause I every year for 15 years, I'd send Mother's Day cards, birthday cards, never got a response. For 15 fucking years, you know, I had to write a letter and say, you know what? I'm done. I'm doing this for myself. I have to let you go. The way you let me go, I'm done. And it still hurts me because she's my mom, but I still don't understand why she left me like that. I mean, I know I'm grown, but still, I still needed my mom.
Right.
Because my dad passed away. And as soon as my dad passed away, it was like, I'm done with you. And I'm like, why? I mean, what the fuck did I do? Excuse my language, but I still don't know why.
It wasn't you, it was her trauma.
Yeah.
She dealt with something in her past that aligned with that, and you reminded her of your situation, reminded her of that, and she hasn't dealt with her trauma, so she had to let you go. And it had nothing to do with you. She had to let you go because she wasn't ready to face her trauma. So you have to, did you give her the letter or did you just write it?
I sent it off, and I have not sent her no more cards, no more nothing. I asked about her from my cousins and aunts, and they're like, oh, she's fine, but she don't ask for you. Well, I'm like, okay. And I just kind of like block it off. And I've always put that wall, but when I start talking about her, I get emotional.
In order for you to get past the, what did I do?
And when I saw healing on there, I was like, I have to be there. You know, I was like,
You have to forgive her, because again, it goes back to not taking things personally. When people do things to us, it's never about us. It's always about them. And so you have to understand that you were just a catalyst for her own trauma. This, what you were dealing with, you coming out to her, whatever happened to her in her past or whatever she dealt with in her past, that reminded her of that. And she didn't want to be reminded of it. So it was not you, it was her own trauma. So for you to get past that, what did I do? You have to forgive her and acknowledge, I know it's not me. And then you kind of have to move on with your life.
I'm sorry, girl.
You don't have to be sorry.
It's a safe place.
I'm sorry I interrupted you. It just like brought me back to
Parents
where
are
I-
always like
And I'm only 2 years old. and I'm still
always
going
the
through
root
it.
of our
Yes.
issues.
It is. And then for me, it's like, I'm glad that you all even still have your moms, you know what I mean? To even, like I said, to envision the possibilities, you know? Because for me, I had to heal from my mom and my inner child wounds, and my mom is dead. And so, and then the women that she placed over me, or the woman that she placed over me, she has dementia. So there's no, I'll never get that reciprocity. I'll never get that, or, you know, and so, that healing journey was actually what brought me home to Lubbock when COVID happened and all this, because this is when I really got heavier on my healing process, and I felt like I needed to process the fact that, you know, my aunt, she, you know, I'll never get that, you know what I mean? She'll never be able to say she's sorry for anything. I would be crazy if I even go to her and talk to her and tell, because she don't even understand. And so as I've been home here in Lubbock, I started my inner child work, but I just had to experience my family and being here in a different light, you know what I mean? And so that process has been harder on me, just because, like I said, and like, you know, like she's saying that at first when I started, there was that hope of coming back home and restoring those relationships, and, you know, being able to, you know, have relationships with my aunts and my family in the way that, you know, I did. But I left for 10 years, and almost 10 years, because of who they were, you know? So, you know, imagine doing this healing journey, and then you gotta come back and, like you say, you gotta come back and do this all
over again.
all over. And I'm glad now, and like I said, because of spaces like this, you know what I mean? Because in our Black community, I can't talk to my family
Right.
about the fact that I went to therapy. I can't talk to them about I can't talk to, you know what I mean? But I do appreciate you, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
for creating a safe place, and I do appreciate you for your vulnerability, because I wouldn't even know that those dots connected, and we just in this space, you know. And so thank y'all, you know, because
Thank you.
they helped me. And I didn't even know it. I didn't know I needed that.
I'm glad you got something from it. Thank you. Anybody else?
Look, we might as well.
Okay.
Come on now. This-
Okay, well, we can wrap it up. I know it's been a long
Good.
time, but I'm grateful, and I appreciate you all for sharing your space with me and letting me come in and share my story. And again, you reach out, connect with me, and I am always available. Okay? Thank y'all.
Thank you.